I am personally, and I think everybody on the casting team is consistently impressed by her level of play. She's 4-0 right now, and that's doubly impressive because I share a time zone with China here in the Philippines, and it is 4:17 a.m. Same for VK Lion. I would assume it is
Ouch.
tough to be playing at that level despite all your body clock being messed up.
Yeah, and obviously playing in the team league in China, they've been playing Last Hero Standing as well, not Conquest. So that's another. It's only a tiny hurdle to overcome, but your brain does process the two differently until you get into the right mindset, especially at 4:15 in the morning. And so apparently we're going to be actually doing it just Saiyan and his opponent. So,
Oh, well, that is my
but she
bad.
is 4-0, and she does have the match you said, so that's still good going.
Yes. I guess my other candidate would be Alan Numbers. I did participate in Derek's game of 20 coins, and Alan Numbers was one of my picks to make it, so I would be very happy to see him do well. But let me just pull up Saiyan's match. Just a little bit of a last minute shake up
Oh, he's
there.
playing
Sorry, guys.
Nerea.
Ooh,
Oh my
fun.
goodness. They're both 3-1, not 4-0. But I'm sure we'll get a chance to see Lion tomorrow, whether she wins or loses in this round, or maybe even at the end of this round if it's a quick one. But Nerea is not a player we have seen for some time.
That's right. My last memory of seeing him in a Masters tour was all the way back in Vegas. I'm sure he was at some event that I'm just not remembering. But Nairia, uh, one of the candidates to make GM originally, I would say, with
Yeah.
a lot of great performances in the mid years of Hearthstone's esports system. And it seems like whenever he chooses to come back after a break, he still has all the skill set on point and can pick up any meta really quickly.
Yeah, he's a tremendous in the game, and he's one of the he's sort of flown under my radar as even being in this one. That's kind of how he operates these days. But he would be a tremendous grandmaster. I don't think there'd be a player in the game would say, "Hey, I'm sad Nerea made grandmasters." I think it'd be a very big addition to the set of players they already have.
Yeah, completely agree. And as for his opponent, of course, just saying current grandmaster from the Americas region. And we see all the classes mirrored for these two players. Just taking a look at the archetypes are the same. The rogue is a little bit different from what I'm seeing. Saiyan does not have the secret package, instead running the stealth package, whereas Nyria does have Hanar and company alongside double questing adventure for both players.
And you've seen a lot of the two rogues, and Derek earlier was saying he thinks that maybe the stealth rogue is sneaking ahead. Do you agree with that, or?
I mean, it's the stealth rogue, so it's the only one that does any sneaking, right?
Fair. You got me there. That's an absolutely perfect answer. Yeah, I think it is probably a little bit stronger in the current meta, but it all depends what you think you're going to be facing. Do you want a lot of stuff, or do you want chunky stuff?
Yeah, I do think that the version with the secrets can have a big upside if you're able to land secret plus Blackjack Stunner. That's probably one of the best tempo
Mhm.
removals in the game right now. But overall, I tend to think the stealth version is pretty much more consistent. And I think that in the Demon Hunter matchup in particular, the things you're trying to hit with Blackjack Stunner is preferably in the early game to get a hold of the board with your one drop. Whereas if you play the double Spy Mistress, that's also a one drop that can remove the opposing battle fiends and blazing battle mages.
And you get to play Sap, which does the same, almost the same things as Stunner, without having to mess around. You just play the card, and it does the thing that it's meant to do. Obviously, it doesn't add the mana, which is very important. But yeah, sometimes wonder if people overcomplicate things for themselves.
Well, we're gonna get a look at Rogue one way or another later on, but starting off first with the Quest Warlock for Nightria versus Just Saiyan's Demon Hunter. Taking a look at the Quest Warlock list, I like that Nightria has included Blood Mage Stalnos, which seems to be the latest tech to the list that I feel has been pretty effective across players from all regions bringing it. It's got that additional cycle and also can help your Rain of Fire be a bit more effective.
Yeah, and it just makes sense, right? Like you spend a lot of, especially when Demon Hunter is a thing where everything has 2 health, like you said about the Rain of Fire. But 2 Moag Artificers is not enough Moag Artificers, but you're only allowed to play 2. So throwing a Thanos is like a bad third one. I sound like Raven, but yeah, I think it's a really good addition to the deck.
I mean, in this meta, you're only allowed to play one warrior and one demon hunter, so you just play a bad third, right?
Yeah, they call
Which
it
is rogue,
druid.
or
Okay,
druid,
rogue.
or hunter, or mage, or priest, or warlock, depending on your preference.
Or shaman, which last time I looked, I'm going to look again now, was the highest win rate deck in this tournament. Yep, 73% win rate from the 11 games it has played.
Wonderful. I can't
I need
wait
to
see.
research overnight who it is that is destroying this field with shamans. I think it's 2 players.
I remember seeing a post from Ruftrellen. He had some weird control shaman, but you know, it might just be the Nuts versus Demon Hunter. We shall see. In any case, though, Just Saiyan has not managed to hit a 1-drop, which is not the end of the world in this matchup. Generally, I tend to think that for Demon Hunter, it's more about having the threat chaining in the mid game rather than in the early game where everything is pretty easily answered by Dark Skies.
Yeah. The trouble with Dark Skies is you only have obviously 2 of them, and you don't want to waste them, but you've just got to use things up to stay alive against Demon Hunter in the early game.
Yeah, it is true. Of course, it helps to have that snowball in the beginning to at least make the Warlock hesitate about having to play the removal versus trying to get the maximum card draws in. Yeah. And so we see Saiyan here committing his first substantial board, I would say. Naria currently doesn't have, I was going to say doesn't have Dark Skies, but off the top there, huge relief for him. Otherwise, it was looking like a plot twist and dig for removal for the following turn. Saiyan can follow up with Shadow Weaver with the sidekick. Even though you would much rather usually play sidekick on minions such as Satyr Overseer, which has continuous value the longer it sticks. A 4/5 is nothing to scoff at. The big thing is that it's out of range of a Crazed Netherwing.
And plenty of damage going to be coming in, but staying at 30 for this long is just such bad news for the Demon Hunter, despite the fact there's a load of damage coming in, right? Or do you think the Metamorphosis gets there?
I don't think the meta alone gets there, but the fact that Saiyan has a double skull hand is huge here. We could see him potentially coin out the one from the right and expend those 2 twin slices also to get it down immediately. There's also the other line, of course, which is go for the Metamorphosis leftmost. Just kind of front load that mana, and he can choose to sit on the hero power for as long as he needs it and then play the other skull. I do think, though, that he should be prioritizing a bit more board development as opposed to the Metamorphosis because Nerga is still at such a healthy life total. So I like the skull from the right.
One of the things, yeah, it's going to go the other way, the first way you described. One of the things I've always liked about Saiyan's play is, of all of the players at the top level, obviously there's not much difference in style because they just play like correctly, which is usually not a judgment call. But he is so willing to just be patient. He doesn't. What you were saying about having the hero power up and just waiting until using it later, that's a very Saiyan thing to do.
Yeah, you make a good point. I think Saiyan in particular is one of the players where I often get surprised by the lines he takes, but when it actually pans out and then you look back 2, 3, 4 turns ago, suddenly it just all comes together. It's genius. And so I'm curious to see what timing he will prioritize for the watermelon charges.
Yeah, me too. And it will really show when we get to see him play Rogue in particular. That is the deck that when he had his massive streak, he performed incredibly well on, and he did. That's exactly where this came from. Like, whoops.
It's huge. Nerya taps into a 0 mana Dragon Queen. Of course, it's not active yet, but you'll take a 0 mana 8/8 any day of the week in this matchup. And now Saiyan has to think about his best removal options. I think he just committed into a skull from the left play, so should he not hit the second Shadow Weaver, he might be tanking another 8 damage from this.
But there's an altruist, so now he can tank the 8 damage if he needs to and just chill for a bit. It depends how he wants to go about it. And this is where you have to do... Maths is a strong word, but you have to do very good addition very quickly to work out what your play is next turn.
Well,
I
this
grow
altruist signals to me that
impatient.
no matter what board Neria manages to build, it is getting obliterated immediately because both of those twin slices
Mhm.
still have the second slice loaded
Time
up.
grows
So
short.
we could be seeing minimum 7 procs from the altruist, and on top of that, the twin slices and whatever comes off of the skull. And so
Yeah.
I like paying no heed to this Alexstrasza. He has enough health total so that the 8 damage is not scary yet.
So next turn he does 9 damage, plus what he gets from the skull if that works, plus he gets to swing with at least 4 points of twin strike damage, plus the weapon he currently has. It's not going to be lethal, I don't think, but it's going to be really ridiculous.
I would just like to watch the fireworks go off here.
Okay, that's a good call.
Do you see?
Having held onto the coin this long is huge as well. Able to get the skull charged down alongside all the other mana.
Alas, poor warlock.
It's critical that Neria took that trade into the 4-5, even though it's very tempting to go face. I think he could smell an altruist coming down, and so he decided to make sure that Saiyan couldn't get that extra 4 damage to face.
Experience of Saiyan showing here as well, something that most of the top players would do here, but he knew he had to go quick because he knew that he was going to have to make a decision what came from the skull. So the second it was his turn, he didn't mess around. He started doing all this gibberish straight away.
That's right. Love to see it. Another
Oh
twin
my
slice!
Goodness, Gia, what is happening?
Oh my! That's just another 4 damage in effect.
Hero attack is up to 9.
He's just built an inner demon.
So when do you think he's going to start using the meta hero power?
Next turn. It was just 5 mana, free up your skull, is what it was for Saiyan. Well, of course, it's going to be useful next turn, especially since Neria is probably looking to heal up. He has the Moarg Nether Breath, but after that, there's still remaining minions on board. This is just so problematic. But the 5 damage is front loaded, it's face up, so Neria can't just pretend like, oh, maybe you don't have Burst from hand.
Yeah, this is where in a physical card game, your opponent pushes their glasses up and says, your turn. And you're like, just scoop up your card and storm out the room in disgust.
I think that's definitely top 3 altruist turns I've seen in my life.
That was a good one, for sure. And you've seen a lot of altruist turns as well.
Yeah. The fact that it was only on 7 as well, like, the most grand altruists I've ever seen were, of course, with maximum mana.
Almost out of time.
Right.
Oh, there's an answer!
I mean, he's cleared up a lot of this.
But this is just lethal as well. Between the watermelon, the cane, the warglaves, that was just nuts.
Yeah. Kane is able to take him down and take a ridiculous 1-0 lead. I told you he was patient and good. Nothing unusual to see here. And why isn't Neria's webcam on?
I mean, Saiyan kind of just windmill slammed him out of the game. I don't blame him for that one. That altruist was wild. If I were patient every day and could get an excess 11 damage for free for being patient, then I would never complain about anything again.
It was just nutty. Absolutely ridiculous. Like, most altruist turns you get like a second slice off and 2 or 3 bits and pieces. You might load up a weapon and it's a bit painful. That literally just changed the game from Saiyan's looking in a good position to, oh, he's won. The game is
Right.
just done.
And even though it's easy to oversimplify it that way, at least in part, it's due to a more mid-game approach from Saiyan. I've seen players mulligan for their 1-drops in this matchup where you'd probably keep 1 if you had it, but I don't think you should be keeping that type of early curve because it's much more effective, as we saw there, to try and make sure that you hit your mid-game powerhouse cards, if not meta or warglaves. The skull is very relevant, of course, compounded by the fact that if you can discount altruist, it is so much extra damage.
And we have to point out he set that up by playing a meta that looked like it wasn't really a very good meta. He didn't want to start pinging face because it would just get healed back up. A meta that he didn't know when he was going to use to clear up the skull in the order. And then, yeah, sure, he got a bit lucky. He drew the altruist. But that just made everything work from that point on. So that was forward planning that came off. Sometimes
Right.
it doesn't come off and you look like, why did he do this? But this just cleared his hand out nicely.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Laurie, because I remember that I was advocating Skull from the right, but to free it up, he would have had to expend 3 0-cost cards, the 2 Twin Slice on the right hand, and the coin, which, I mean, the Altruist was not in hand at that point, so I was thinking maybe he could try and look for mid-game approaches. But I think as
Your
early as
soul
that
shall
point,
be
Saiyan was
mine.
already considering the upside of drawing Altruist versus the cost of delaying the Skull 1 turn and front-loading a Metamorphosis, and out very well for him.
Yeah, and I'm not like joking here. You are really good at Demon Hunter. You've studied Demon Hunter quite strongly. So if he's doing it differently to you and it's working out for him, he's doing something very, very right. Or getting very, very lucky.
No, I will agree with he was doing something very right. Patience probably is the way to go in this particular matchup. But now the tables are turned. Saiyan is the quest lock now, and Nairia, love to see that he keeps just the one Battle Fiend there.
Job done.
And Questlock, to me, might be the deck where the Grandmasters have a little bit of an edge over the non-Grandmasters. They've had to practice this deck. They've had to look into it. I'm sure the other players have looked at it. But you don't really bump into it that much on ladder, not relative to the other main decks. And so I do wonder if maybe the Grandmasters who've had 3 or 4 weeks of this nonsense now will have a slight practice edge on it.
I think there was 1 week in ladder where you would bump into a lot of it, which is the week preceding when it was brought a lot to GM, and it was when all the big streamers were kind of hyping up like, this is the best deck in the game. But right, if you were not actively practicing in that window, which was still a ways off from Master's Tour Yonshipping, I think that, yeah, this is not a deck that you can play off stock knowledge. It requires active practice, in my opinion.
I agree. Although we have seen a lot of you had explained about how Nairia works, and you see him in various streams in their chats from time to time. So he keeps a very strong eye on the meta even when he's not playing in the game, and he's very good, so he should pick it up quickly. But yeah, I do favour the GMs to play it better.
Nairia took a very slow turn there, not hastily coining out the Satyr Overseer, recognizing the threat of Dark Skies and the the value of the coin in his hand, which is to make sure his curve is smooth into the Warglaves. And Saiyan there, already expending another breath because he had not hit a more convenient source of removal. Kind of hurts to do that when you have double Moarg in hand, but I think he realizes that leaving up the Battle Fiend for another turn is probably going to negate the extra healing had he held on to it anyway.
Demons.
And we have seen the Bully be pretty useful in this exact matchup where you just lock out the tap for the rest of the game.
Yeah, the Saboteur usually attack for the mirror,
Sorry,
but
yeah.
it has its occasional upside also for particularly Quest Warlock, I would say, which tries to have... I mean, it already struggles with its mana expenditure a lot of the time.
Good
So
job, you know what I'm talking about. Tick off called wrong card name off your bingo card, ladies and gentlemen.
Everyone. Job's done.
One Moarg expended. The card draw going. Second Nether Breath drawn for Saiyan is pretty big as well. And the Crazed Netherwing, should Nairia choose to go for the Satyr Overseer plan, which looks like the instinctual play here.
Yeah, it's always sad to pull the trigger on an Overseer you know is almost certainly going to get blown up, but you have to chip away at their removal cards one way or another, so what better way than to do it this way?
Yeah.
You're not going
It
to get
was
better
also-
value than this.
He's also in that leftmost position where he really needed to play it to free up the skull, and then move on to game plan B for Demon Hunter, which is hit their glaive bounds, hit possibly Altruist, like we saw Saiyan demonstrate a while ago, and just burst from hand to outpace the Warlock healing.
Yeah, I'm sad, and this isn't a criticism of his play. I haven't found a slot where he could have done it, but not making space to get that Saboteur in at some point, that's a big deal, because obviously you're slowing down their quest, and Warlock sometimes, once you've occupied the board, doesn't get the time to weave in a 3-mana tap and deal with all the other stuff going on. It can definitely just lock you down.
Yep, very good point. Naria might not have a window to play the Saboteur where it's actually bothersome, because by then maybe Saiyan has a lot of mana that he would have spared one for the tap anyway. But we see here.
Yes, Naria's been just trying to get a board so he can do that. It's just not happened yet.
Saw there, of course, Saiyan taking the clear with the Crazed Netherwing. I'm sure Naria expected that, but the upside from Naria's perspective is that it's a clear at the cost of 3 health from Saiyan, and Naria is choosing not to go for the skull here, doesn't develop a minion, says to Saiyan that if you're going to heal a lot with second Nether Breath and Moarg, you have to target your own minion.
Of course it's the right way.
Yeah, and forcing him to have it as well.
Yeah.
I know that when you play against these sort of decks, if you're playing these on ladder yourself, that sometimes it feels like, well, they've always got it, and you see, Saiyan doesn't have it this time around. But like Gia's just explained, first of all, you've got to target your own minion, and secondly, you get another wave with your skull. You've got to make them have it, and occasionally they don't have it, and you just kill them the next turn.
Oh, big deal. Naria gets his Glaive Bound, so we could see him delay Skull once more, just go for a Chaos Strike and Glaive Bound. That is another 9 damage to the face. I tend to think that the upside of playing Skull on 7 mana versus 8 is a lot lower, because a lot of the expensive cards at 5 cost are unlocked to be playable on the same turn as Skull at that specific 8 mana breakpoint.
That's interesting, actually, now you bring it up. That does seem to happen a lot between these top players. And we're going to see it again, most likely here.
Healing.
That's if Saiyan can survive.
It doesn't look like it. He, of course, has this plot twist to try and redraw into the Aranasis for healing, but outside of those, he's just starved for healing. Used both of the Nether Breaths. Zephyrus very unlikely to be active, but that's, at the very least, a Keladon active.
And no tap before he twisted, which is always... Oh, there's the Keladon. Which is always a sign that your opponent is very low on health. When watching Hunter Ace playing this deck, you always see him tap, even when it looks like you shouldn't. Maybe he shouldn't at times, but...
But for saying here, just Keladon, looks like you're losing a lot of the time. There's already just 4 showing from the other side, and so he's going for a tap. Looks for a Miracle, gets the Miracle. Huge, huge, huge. Okay,
Wow.
I was wondering if he wanted to go Dark Skies there, which means questing and then Dark Skies Alexstrasza, but he is preserving the questing and using Soulfire instead. Looks fine because he's pushing a lot of damage face with
He
Alexstrasza.
set up lethal, in fact. That's definitely a lot. That's plenty.
Yeah.
Except there's an I-beam and there are other cards to interfere with. Otherwise the game would be really easy and I would be able to play it well.
Okay, Skull is ripped for Nyria. Frozen Shadow Weaver could be a huge one here. Freeze off that Alexstrasza. Ooh.
Now it's Naria's turn to work out if he thinks that there's any way he doesn't die if he I-beams the Adventurer, the Explorer.
I think it's reasonable to assume you survive if you just I-beam the Explorer. Go up to 14. So Saiyan from hand has to come up with 6, and you've seen a Soulfire and 2 Nether Breath. I don't feel it's particularly likely. It's more so a problem of whether he can put together the damage for the following turn.
Yeah, if Saiyan gets 2 goes at it, he's definitely going to win it, so... Oh. Wow. 1 off?
Yep, 1 off. So he can tap into the other rain? Or that.
He can... Oh, he gets Nether
Oh
Wing.
my gosh, that's lethal!
Yeah, you know if it's going your way when you're playing Conquest and you win the same matchup from the opposite side that you just won.
Yeah, very
Wow.
good point.
I was wondering if he was going to play the Rain and then the Soulfire and try to plot twist into a lethal if that didn't happen. But didn't need to, gets it done. And obviously, look how excited Saiyan is by the whole situation.
Yes, of course, all according to plan. Naria, they're looking very excited as well. So animated, full of expressions. But I will say that for Saiyan, you made a very good point about his endgame situation had he not immediately hit the lethal. I do agree that I think he probably just looks for the additional damage from Plot Twist there, because as far as his other outs, there was no healing left outside of Aranasis, which also you can get from the Plot Twist. Pretty fortunate outcomes, I would say, in terms of Saiyan's post-quest tap results, but I think Neria had the right idea how he was going about it in the mid-game.
Yeah, we saw somebody earlier, and I've seen so much Hearthstone today that I can't remember who it was, but they were tapping into like zero-cost nothings that didn't do anything the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
And so he just taps once, here's an Alexstrasza, saves the game, go to 15, and kill you with it.
You're
It's easy.
back.
And now we have Saiyan on the Rogue, which, previously I would be saying this is an unfavorable for the Rogue versus Quest Warlock, but the questing inclusion seem to have been changing that perception of the matchup. And Neria's opener is not looking very good at all.
Yeah, and the stealth version, I'm just looking which version he's playing, but the stealth version, it seemed meant to be better against the Warlock as well.
Right. Yeah.
Remember we said that one player was playing the stealth, yeah?
It is indeed Saiyan with the stealth
Thank you.
package. Holds on to a Shadow Step here, which is surprisingly valuable for the Rogue, I would say. Even in this matchup where you don't want to go all in on early game aggro, Shadow Step can just help you create more value, be it with the Greyheart Sage or with Evil Miscreants, or of course Edwin to just get it out of range of Dark Skies, for example.
Well, if value is what you want, this start from Saiyan is almost certain to get it, depending if nobody wants to rain this, if he draws it or something. We can't kill it off, he hasn't got enough damage. Yeah, just can't get it. So, value is going to be there.
Very heavy
since
hand
when
for
Rain has
Nyria.
done 3, so he...
A cruel fate awaits you in the ashes.
And Nyria's hand is awful. He's not hit any questing adventurer, he's not hit, explorer, and he's not hit plot twist or sense demons.
Or Dark Sky, or...
Yeah, no removal that he
Oh,
wants
that's where I
to use
got Rain
either.
from. Rain of Skies. I know who to blame for that one.
I've infected everybody now. with
Never
Rain
my
of
fault.
Skies.
I Seal of Fate and Rain of Skies and all my own problems.
Well-
Okay, so Saiyan now has basically filled his hand up as quickly as the Warlock. Can he make it count?
So the baseline play here looks to be Seal Fate because it's an invoke, and then he can play the Lackey on curve, but it walks pretty cleanly into the Crazed Netherwing, so we could also see the coin Shield of Galakron and take the value trade.
He also needs to consider the value of burning a card there. It's almost always 0, but in this particular deck where your opponent's using the same cards multiple times, there was the option to sap and burn something there.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cute. I do think the sap targets get a lot better, though, the prime one being the Abyssal Summoner token. Not token. But it is a token because it's generated, but it's so large that it doesn't feel like I should be calling it a token.
Yeah, it's the sort of play you make when you think you're a very big underdog and you try to burn Sintalol's Shudderwalk or something.
I'm so glad we managed to fit that into the broadcast despite Sinto not being on stream.
Yeah. He didn't bring Demon Hunter either today.
Speaking of overdraw, though, we did see Saiyan go for backstab on his own minion, because if the Skyvateer is cleared, that would have brought Saiyan up to 10 cards and he would have overdrawn the one off the top. So he decides that the Lackey and the Spy Mistress are more valuable in his hands than a backstab, and I think that evaluation makes a lot of sense. Rush Lackey is surprisingly efficient at taking back tempo in this matchup, and the Spy Mistress could help him combo off with a future Skyvateer. And also, you don't want to bending both of those into a potential Crazed Netherwing.
And this is the turn I think he needs to consider how he's going to win the game more specifically than just general strategy. Because he needs to know what the Galakron is going to function as in this deck. Is he going to use it to try and get the weapon, which is pretty hard going, but he can get there? Is he going to just eviscerate and kill you with little minions? And he's going to make all those decisions sort of about now, because they are diverging paths if he goes wide or not.
Saiyan has managed to put a lot of pressure onto Nyria. Again, I was considering the sap here. This seems like slightly better sap target, just aside from the overdraw. It just means that if Nyria wants to play his Netherwing again, it means he takes another 3 damage, and Saiyan is approaching lethal. But the thing is, with the versions of Rogue these days, is that Eviscerate is pretty much it for the burst damage. With Rogue, you would say, oh, I have an Eviscerate, I just need to top deck the other one back in the day, but that's pretty much it for the burst. There's no Leroy on top of that. And the Galakron for Saiyan is a ways off from being fully invoked. The Kobold Lackey is huge here. Not this turn, but maybe paired with those Shadow Steps and the Eviscerate.
Yeah, it's getting there pretty quickly. Rogue is so weird. It doesn't have any big things. It doesn't have any healing. It doesn't have any damage. How does it ever win a game? It does, though. It just overwhelms you with rubbish. A bit like my casting.
I kind of feel bad for burning you at the start now, because I just remembered whenever I cast with you, you tend to self-deprecate a lot, Lorinda.
Let's just stop you from doing it. I have to get in first.
Okay. So, just the Pharaoh Cat here for Saiyan to fill out the curve. I fully expect... okay, maybe not fully, but I would instinctually look at the dagger charge going face because he's put together a lot of bursts, but of course you need to respect the healing possibility from Nairia.
Yeah, and if he does end up playing Galakon soon and not having a weapon, maybe he'll need that charge at some point in the entirety of the game. So that's something else that rogues don't do like they used to, is dagger a lot. You used to spend your whole game thinking, do I dagger more, do I dagger more? Now, if you dagger twice, it's a lot.
Yeah, the face of
the
Rogue
lackeys
has...
fill the gaps.
Face of Rogue has really changed, and they also just play 2 drops now, Hanar and Secret. That's not a thing that used to happen.
Yeah, and Pharaoh Cat quite often gets you 2 drops as well. Often enough to mess things up.
Well, that's a big heal for Nairia here, and also, he's pushing a lot of damage to Saiyan's face, already down to 14. Nairia is holding onto the Soulfire, could potentially tap into even more burst, and Saiyan's removal is quite costly.
Yeah, he was just about at the point where he was going to win the game, and all of that removal is going to end up being used on minions just to stay alive. And when that starts happening, you end up in a pretty bad spot a lot of the time.
Saiyan probably gonna Shadow Step this Lackey to also remove the Crazed Netherwing. At first glance, it looks like a pretty brave Togwaggle, but if the turn was gonna involve removal at some point, all the alternative developments were pretty slow for Saiyan anyway, so I like that he manages to fit in the Tog and only gets rid of the biggest threat on board.
Yeah, and by nature of how the turn worked, it got rid of all the stuff in his hand that was going to fill up space that he needed to clear for the wand anyway. So it should work out okay for... Well, I don't know if it's going to work out okay for him in terms of the game, but in terms of the Togwaggle, that'll work out okay.
Quest complete for Nairia, but not necessarily sure he wants to tap this turn when a pretty chunky Abyssal Summoner is available on this turn.
Yeah, and it's hard to see many downsides for going for the Summoner.
I wouldn't say you have to weigh the downside of the Summoner. It's more of he has to weigh the average upside of a 0-cost card from the top of his deck. With both Malagos and Alexstrasza in hand, though, I struggle to see what 0-cost card Nairia particularly wanted here. And we could just see him now develop nothing because he didn't get a minion off the top.
Interesting. Okay, is there a lethal? I don't think there is, but we ought to keep our wits about us on this wand. Most of the damage from the lackeys, of course, got used up last turn in just not dying.
That's right. Ooh.
Game gets exciting.
Good old Eddie.
Saiyan has won the last 2 games on the back of some ridiculous looking turns. Can he make it 3 in a row with Eddie being gigantic?
Well, we see the Twisting Nether, but from Saiyan's perspective, it is looking to be very backbreaking here. Wow, he's going all in on this. I was thinking there's a world where instead of playing Eviscerate Grandmummy and Lackey there, you go Wasteland Assassin and Edwin, so that if there's a Nether, you still end up with a 4-1 stealth Reborn.
I feel the same way. Maybe Saiyan's just aware that if this doesn't get there, he just loses. I'm not saying that that's the right attitude or even what he's doing, but this does make space for his Galakrond to draw a load of cards, so maybe he just wanted to empty more clutter.
I think that's the big upside of his play. And also, if the Twisting Nether is full cost, that's, not too bad for just Saiyan. That's pretty much Nyria's entire turn passed, and then Saiyan gets to swing for another 5 damage, dig for his other Eviscerate, and try and get the lethal that way. But Nyria decides that that is not good enough for the Nether. He needs to hit Keladon or more healing.
Right. I love it when two really powerful players play each other because they can put reads on each other that you can't do on ladder. You can't play this play on ladder if you don't know your opponent because you can't have them as being good enough to be setting up a really powerful next play. But Nyria has that read. Because why else was saying go all in unless his next turn was also crazy?
Indeed. Pretty high level of read, I would also agree. And Nyria fully expects him to be dead. It's not yet, as far as we can see.
But he thought Saiyan had 10, so now Saiyan only needs 9, so that's why Nyria thinks he's dead. That's not Eviscerate, that's not Eviscerate. That's Eviscerate, though, and that will be the game 22-27, it will.
And even if it were a little bit short, we could have seen Flick your own Grandmummy to try and get 50-50 on your Adwin. Okay, that's just a bit too fancy. That was pretty amazing from Saiyan there, 3-0 sweep. I think you had the perfect read that we did see pretty ridiculous turns back to back to back, carrying Saiyan to the win though, but he did very intentionally prepare for all of those turns.
Yeah, all 3 games looked absolutely absurd, and of course you've got to pick up the cards. So from where if you're Nyria and you're not playing Saiyan, you message your friends and say, "Noob, high rolled me, la la la." But we saw how all 3 of those were set up in advance, and yes, you get the pickup, but you only get the pickup that wins you the game if you play correctly to get to that point.
Right. So that does mean Saiyan is up to 4-1 now. Nyria down to 3-2, which is always a little bit dicey when there's only 9 rounds of Swiss and only the top 8 make it through in a field of 350. It feels like you can really only afford to comfortably drop 1 series or maybe 2 if it's later on in the rounds. I do hope we get to see more of Nyria though. I think that, as we mentioned at the beginning of the series, he is a player that whenever he does choose to come back to Hearthstone and focus, he can outperform the majority of the field.
And as you mentioned there are 350 players in this event, and I'm sure you want to see some more of them. So that's goodbye from me and Gia for now, but we are going to show you some more Hearthstone from round 5 in just a moment.
Legion! Forward!
Can you hear the thunder in the distance? Wow! Cannot run, cannot hide, say goodbye to your existence. Join the army of flesh and crawl. Here we go, this is our
Will you
world.
bend your mortal knees? To Mecha-Jaraxxus, your new king!
His upgraded abs are undefeated. Merciless, so Alpha Demon, no one can defeat this team. Legion, let me hear you scream! Our enemies fall in the crimson sand. You have no choice but to join our band. Serve Mecha-Jaraxxus' evil plan. The Rusted Legion sowing ashes in our land.
Attention, denizens of Outland! Prepare yourself for the biggest, baddest event this side of the Dark Portal!
Fire Festival?
Incorrect! It's the Fellfire Festival of Music and Vengeance! Vengeance! Coming to the fairgrounds of Hellfire Peninsula over 4 weeks, spanning 5 stages. The Fellfire Festival includes a lineup guaranteed to sizzle your grizzle. Week 1, in Bob's Big Amphitheater, pirates are invading Battlegrounds. A brand new minion class is here to swab your deck, along with 15 new minions and 3 new heroes. And they won't just be at the Fellfire Festival for one show, they'll be here forever.
Wait, what did he just say?
Week 2, in the Curse Terracoa Pavilion, the one, the only, Piranha Starseeker takes the stage in a brand new solo adventure, Trial by Fellfire. See your honor face off against Mecha-Jaraxxus and the Rusted Legion. Your doom awaits. While she's here, she'll be throwing down with the pirates over in the battlegrounds as a 4th playable hero.
What did he just say?
Then we kick it old school for a special command performance guaranteed to burn your crusade. Charging in week 3 are the Trial by Hellfire challenges. Relive the hits and slashes, such as Kill Bus, You Will Not Prevail, Mactherodon, and Lady Barge. Co-headlining in week 3 is the baddest brawl to ever blast them all. The return of the Burn Dog! We've added new weapons to hack, slash, and crush your opponent! And speaking of weapons, week 4 on the Rusted Chainsaw stage. You want to be part of the Rusted Legion? Well, you get your chance when you enter the Rumble Dome! Choose a henchman, grab a weapon, and battle for a spot next to Mecha-Jaraxxus himself! The glory will be yours! As will Tetanus! Whatever. For all attendees of the Fellfire Festival of Music and Vengeance, you will have the chance to earn numerous rewards the likes of which Outland has never seen! For all the details, check out the festival flyer. Make it your desktop background. Print it. Get a nice frame and hang it on your wall. Just keep it handy. It's got everything you need to know for joining us at the Fellfire Festival of Music and Vengeance! I should never have taught you to self-promote.
Welcome back, everyone, to the final portion of the broadcast for day number 1 here at Masters Tour Yangshiping Online. My name's Frodan. I'm joined by Derek Brown, and we're going to be wrapping up with a tour around the tavern to check out what else is happening in round 5 of Swiss. As we did just see Saiyan able to take down Neria pretty decisively and improve his score good enough to still be in contention for top 8, while players like Neria will have to hope for a requalification or really good tiebreakers. In the meantime, we're going to get ready to transition to some bonus coverage here with Surrender versus Garrett Lay, who is a player that's up and coming, trying to qualify for a lot versus one of the greatest players in APAC history. So no big deal, no pressure, Garrett.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely a tall order here for him to be beating Surrender. It is pretty much a David versus Goliath story here. I think you could talk about Glee. I'm sure has a lot of fans back home rooting for him here because after he, I believe, narrowly missed out on qualifying through to the next tour stop coming up, he therefore needs to hit a 7-2 score here in order to be able to get up to that point where he's able to qualify through a good score in this Masters Tour event. But like we're saying, up against Surrender, just recently got yet another incredible finish in a Grandmaster, so narrowly missing out on 2 years in a row going through to World Champs. I think he's in one of his best forms we've ever seen him, and I say that knowing how high he has flown in terms of Hearthstone play.
Yeah, there's not too much that needs to be said about Surrender to introduce him to people who have been following the competitive Hearthstone scene. But for people who don't, Surrender, of course, had been hyped up for years as being one of the top players in Asia Pacific for a while by his then teammates, Sixo and Hoi, who were kind of, some of the kings of Europe back then. And then Surrender really lived up to a lot of that potential with a amazing top 4 performance at World Championship, narrowly losing to Tom 60229, who eventually became the 27th World Champion. And then since then, Surrender, of course, has performed very well in Grandmasters. Most people consider him to be one of, if not the greatest story player in Asia Pacific, right behind Tom.
I definitely agree with that. And one deck that he has been consistently playing and kind of revolving his entire strategy around, you could say, is the Highlander Hunter. This is, from what we can see already, the same strategy he was going for in Grandmasters of bringing the Highlander Hunter and leaving up the Warrior, which he quite clearly had an awful lot of success with.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty unusual choice. As is, for example, not coining out the Spell Maw either, which is... it got me all sorts of questions going along, Derek. I've seen Surrender play the Hunter list. I saw his records, and I just thought that, maybe Surrender knew something that we didn't, and really he's even changing his play pattern a little bit by leaving up Warrior. But he does have this early game curve, and ultimately what's really important for that Hunter, bar none, is being able to consistently play a minion every single turn. Hey, sometimes Warrior doesn't have the answer.
That's exactly right. I think that's where the Highlander Hunter can really start to come into its own against Warrior, because to an extent, you have to not rely too heavily on the super aggro game plan. Like against the Rogue, you pretty much just want to push everything to face and hope that gets there. But against the Warrior, you kind of want to just use your power plays every single turn, because it can go that extra mile compared to the Demon Hunter, as probably its closest cousin at the moment for the Hunter, by going over to Varanus on turn 6, which can be incredibly powerful. Dino Tamer Brand, Siamat, Dragon Queen Alexstrasza. These are cards that Warrior is incredibly ill-equipped to deal with, which we may see if the Warrior doesn't run away with the game in the early game.
Well, doesn't seem like Warriors run away with anything right now. That trade into the minion. Always have to wonder if that's what Hunter wants versus not, because right now Surrender has a pretty decisive board lead right now.
Yeah, Ooze to take out the weapon, Scavenger's Ingenuity to get himself more plays on curve here. It's looking good.
Yeah, and for Garrett, doesn't seem like he's got much going on in his favor. The risky skippers don't have cheap activators outside themselves for Battle Rage, and if you use both risky skippers here, that sounds like you're incurring a huge welcome risk to the situation. You might not be able to come back if you don't have an opportunity to answer multiple minions on the board.
Yeah, that risk sounds like a skipper to me. I don't think I want to go for that.
Yeah, so he just does what he can, the best possible development onto the board, and now Surrender immediately reaching for that Unleash the Hounds with that Zixer Prime to get maximum board presence.
Doing what you absolutely have to do in the face of this, which is clear off all the minions. Play around Blood Boil, play around Battle Rage. If you do this every single turn, or if you have the ability to do so even, you will be in a good spot against Warrior.
Surrender trying to weigh what's the correct trading sequence. Takes 4 on the chin, takes 3 more. Jeez.
Should still be okay. Very much on the front foot here. Taking damage is not something that he is really afraid of up against Bleedless that is running none of the bomb package.
Yep. It does seem like it's pretty much a straight up Warrior deck that most people come to expect. And with this Blood Boil Brute to answer one of the minions on board, is that a little bit too slow?
I mean, I don't think it's so much that it's too slow. I think it's more that it just what is the hand doing after that? Really, extra minions in order to get value out of minions. Here, he's going a step further by completely clearing off the board. He gets the second skipper onto the board. This is an incredibly dangerous play. If this is able to be cleared off by Surrender, these battle rages are doing next to nothing.
Surrender control of the board is really hard to stop. People has value, and now Garrett's pretty much stuck to just draw whatever he can. Force your cash off the top.
Very good draw. But it just does not line up very well. Yeah, exactly.
There is this one of Execute in the Warrior deck list, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be the tech card of choice here.
Yeah, not to take out the Feywing. I mean, Glee's just trying to figure out the kind of the damage calculations about what outs does he have at this point to take the game. To which the answer is, with both Risky Skippers gone, it's pretty much only Grom plus Inner Rage that he would need to draw one after the other to have a really good shot at just bursting out his opponent here. But by going face, he does give himself the possibility of that as an out.
Surrender doing what Hunter does best, piling on pressure. And it's kind of like we were talking about the last time we were casting Derek. Oh my. Well, this is his second Risky Skipper. Is it too late at this point? Okay, so the lackeys allows him to copy it and draw with Battle Rage. The problem is that he might just commit his entire mana to drawing cards and then just take too much damage and die, but I think he has to incur that risk right now. Yep, the Bookboard Mercenary. Whoa.
Yeah, the ordering works in the good way as well, where they don't all blow themselves up, thankfully, so he can draw the full suite of cards.
Hey, that's Grom. Instantly huge here. Actually finds a way to activate that Grom with Inner Rage.
Oh,
You gotta be kidding me.
I mean, that's what we were looking at, right? Is the out, and he discovered half of it and drew the other with a big Battle Rage. There's no lethal out for Surrender. That's just game.
That is correct. Well, damage in hand. And gets completely bailed out by the Ethereal Lackey in a situation that was looking bad. Although that Battle Rage was very timely and helped give him a bunch of resources. And with that Armorsmith draw, we know that there's options for Garrett to even come back there. So a 2-0 lead as Hunter not able to beat the Warrior. And Surrender takes another loss.
Yeah, looking very, very good for Glee there. And even just being able to take a couple of games off of a player as strong as Surrender is no mean feat in its own right. But this does constantly circle back round to the philosophy that I bring up with these players who leave up Warrior. They're not expecting to sweep it. They are fully expecting that at some point the opponent will get a win with the Warrior. And so now with the Warlock as the only remaining deck, I think it's a very strong argument here that Surrender has 3 good matchups left over.
Yes. It does make me wonder about ultimately like what he feels like the percentages are. If he feels like he has a better chance of taking down the Warrior versus the Demon Hunter with his deck list,
Right.
which is pretty surprising to me because I always feel like that's not the case. And you see exactly why. Even in times where it feels like Warrior's down and out, they at the very last second have like this burst plan that can pull them out from the depths of the abyss. So, 2-0 lead right now and Surrender's on the ropes, and perhaps we can see another player from the Americas continue to make that charge through the early rounds here of Swiss.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with you. Personally, I am very much on the side of the majority of the players here at Masters Tour Yongchiping, with banning the Warrior is the way to go. It's just the best deck at the moment by quite a large margin in my estimation. But when it's a player like Surrender on the other side of the argument, you've got to at least concede a little bit that they definitely know something you're not privy to.
And now Surrender has that imprisoned Thelma ready to go on too, but he also has Zephyrus. 2 options at his disposal. Zephyrus allows him to potentially just curve out even better, offering up turn 3 play.
Yeah, it's just about what you want to go for here, because if you're going for Wild Growth, which does make the most sense to me, then I think this is definitely the way to go for Zephyrus here. If you're going for Animal Companion, I think I would probably prefer just going for the Felmore and hoping to draw something off your top, because most of the 3-drops in your deck are kind of close enough to Animal Companion, whereas nothing in your deck does the same thing as Wild Growth.
Wild Growth, very nice for a Highlander deck to curve out, but look at these top decks from Garrett. You know, has the Explorer on 2 and the Sentiments on 3.
Very, very powerful curve. And then the plot twist to follow up as well. Whether or not he even goes for it is another question, though. With the Abyssal Summoner in hand, if he gets himself a decent extra couple of cards, we could see him hold off. But for the most part, getting the quest online is as crucial in this matchup as any other.
Look pretty okay for the Hunter so far. Now could end up just going for tempo on the board or just a straight up plot twist. And I mean, this is understanding what your deck needs to do while your opponent's setting up. You can take an opportunity to set up yourself. So, you know, kind of a passive couple turns here, but now it's starting to really ramp up here with the Hunter damage.
Yeah, this is a very, very annoying card for Glee to deal with, especially with look at the way Surrender has set this up. If a big AoE turn comes down here, there will be also the Felmore just smacking face next turn, so another piece of removal is required thereafter as well.
Yeah, and it draws the coin, which allows him to go for a coin into Keladon. And Keladon can potentially receive that Felmaw, which in hindsight,
That's
by the way,
true.
number one, that Felmaw damage not going face was a pretty significant event that hindsight. Could also just simply Dark Skies. How close is Garrett to finishing the quest? Pretty close after that first block.
Yeah, I'd imagine only 3 or 4 off at this point.
The problem becomes you do just accept that damage that Felmaw brings you, and if you don't draw the Iron Dusty Broodmothers, is that just too much?
Yeah, and you also have to consider what is coming down on the following turn. If it's Dinotamer Bran, the Dark Skies on its own is not enough to clear, so you're going to need a little bit of extra help there, in which the Keladon could help you out then in clearing off the King Crush itself. So many different layers to consider, but this does give him the upside of potentially stopping the Felmore, even if it doesn't work out here.
Yep, and Surrender also saw a little bit of a struggle to remove that, that minion. So I wonder what he's going to do to press in here. He's got the Corrosive Threat to push, and I think this is just valuing the hero power to put pressure onto the Warlock every single turn. If you want to play Abyssal Summoner, you risk potentially just dying. No more Gartificer comes to the hand here.
There are a lot of cards he's dead to on this following turn, so Heal does feel pretty much just forced out of his hand here, whether he likes it or not.
Right, so this should finish the quest and get one ability to hero power into something significant, and also potentially pick up a, say, Mortar Coil to help end the turn nicely. Ooh, picks up the Broodmother for the last draw, that's big.
Okay, not a bad card, obviously not one of the real crucial swing cards you're looking for, but it allows him to clear the board that little bit more cheaply, and as soon as a Nether Breath is found, this could turn around for Glee.
Yeah, I wonder if Surrender's still on that same kind of game plan where he wants to just hero power every single turn and whittle down a larger percentage of Garrett's health every single turn. Or if he just simply wants to go for maximum board presence, put out the Tiamat and threaten your opponent, force him to remove now that Keladon.
Yeah, I will say that based on his play in Grandmasters, he's very much been favoring the second of those two options, which is as long as you're threatening a certain amount of damage each turn with these minions on board, you don't need to go overly aggressive and forfeit board control, because if they do go for a big play with Moarg into Nether Breath, you need to have a backup plan. You want to have a board in play so that you push damage on the turn where that happens, for just such an occurrence as this.
Nether Breath draw is another rebound of health. Oh, wow. Okay, so...
Very interesting.
I mean, you really want to utilize this Moarg plus Nether Breath while you can, right?
Yeah.
So I guess in this position... But we're not really developing anything proactive. Unless you want to craze Netherwing and go down 3 extra health here. Honestly, that's not entirely unreasonable either.
I think you're correct. I think that's a very, very scary play to make when you're at 3-1. You're looking at potentially being able to go to 4-1 in a great spot to go all the way tomorrow. But you do need to take some kind of risks in these scenarios. He needs to get down Alexstrasza and clear the board on the same turn if he wants to swing this around.
Right. So Alex is not really an option here. The Crazed Netherwing will damage himself. Soulfire helps remove more of that board, which he already had that clear anyways with the Dark Skies, but the problem still exists. Now, are you going to damage yourself and risk taking on a little bit more damage than you want to?
Okay, well, this is the clear of the opponent's board and the swing on his board at the same time that we were talking about, but losing Alexstrasza there is disastrous. His 2-turn lethal setup just went out the window.
Yeah, by using even that Soulfire in general too, also has lost that opportunity, and also lost a lot of the range that can go ahead and surprise you with. So now Surrender can easily press in, puts Garrett in a position where, you know, quite frankly, he's going to have to hope for something really good on top of his deck. Dark Skies isn't even enough for clear, but he does get 3 hero powers now. Or rather, the hero power that gets the card to come up.
Right, exactly. And there are some big hits that he can get in the deck. Malagos, of course, would be huge. Second Aranasi would be huge. Or an active Dragon Queen.
Yes. He could just clear the board, though. The Dark Skies Mortal Coil situation, or...
Yeah.
Go ahead and first draw. Alright, go ahead and do that again if he wants to. So now that he knows some of the cheaper cards have been pulled out, he might hero power first now, which he does.
And he gets 0 mana Zephrys. I mean, we're looking at like trade Dark Skies plus Healing Touch potentially to just go back up to 17. But maybe we need to think bigger.
Think bigger how? Edwin Mancleave? Is that what you're thinking?
I mean, maybe like aggressive potential. I don't know if it's possible in the next couple of turns, but...
this will offer him like Holy Light, I guess?
Yeah.
Option heal.
That is interesting. He cashed in a Mortal Coil for an extra card draw at the exchange of 2 health, which is a very debatable question here.
Yeah, I think in his mind, he wants to try and maximize the amount of chances that he eventually picks up some of the other power cards from the deck. But, you know, outside of Alexstrasza and the one that he already played, Malagos is pretty much the only big, powerful card left for him to become discounted 0. He does have another Abyssal Summoner, though, as well, so I guess those are the 2 things.
Yeah, and I mean, the other big one is, of course, that you can have the reactive cheap card. Like, if you can get Twisting Nether at this point, being able to go Twisting plus Alex on the same turn is a huge tempo swing if your opponent has built some kind of a board presence.
Yeah, it is a setup, though, because you can't get Twisting Nether without hero powering, and then you have to wait for the following turn.
It's very
slow.
slow.
If you can get them, you're cooking. Now Surrender, again, weighing if he wants to hero power and push that damage, or set up the best possible board. And I mean, Stormhammer is 6 damage. Over 2 turns, you're dealing 10. That seems like a good deal to me.
He's holding off real hard on this Siamat at this point.
This push does not pay off. Dragon Queen Alexstrasza comes down.
And herein,
Reasonably statted minion.
yeah, exactly. Herein lies the downside of Surrender's play by not going for the Tiamat. This just gives free reign for Glee to develop whatever he wants here very safely.
He does have an answer to the Tiamat. In fact, Tiamat Wind Fury with Rush goes off a big portion of this. Okay.
Tyrant?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Tyrant is pretty good tempo against medium-sized board your opponent's going to play.
Yeah. The Rush Wind Fury here is very, very powerful, for sure.
Huge. Gets a free swing off the Stormhammer as well. Okay, Malagos is nice, but there isn't any spells to play it with right now.
Right, yeah. And at the same time, both Nether Breaths have gone down, Soulfire's gone down. There's not much left in the deck, really, to go with it. Zephyrus has gone, Alexstrasza's gone. All the big cards have already been played at this point.
This is a 6-6, or sorry, a 5-5 rather.
Whoa.
The Grand Slam. I mean, he's got lethal. In fact, it's pretty close. No matter how it actually cuts, as long
It's,
as
Three go face.
three go face and one goes. No, I mean they all go. But chances are it's not, and Surrender still sets them up to be in a good position.
So it might just be worth going for Twin Tyrant, right? Because the Nagran Slam, one of them's going to trade into the 5/5
Yeah.
after you swing in.
Yeah, Twin Tyrant also gets you another swing of the Stormhammer. So
true.
you can hero power, put your opponent down to 9. Your opponent has actually still a hard time dealing with 4/10. You know that your opponent's burst range is very limited because they've already used Nether Breath and Soulfires. Not to mention, Garrett's not holding any discounted cards. Surrender knows that. He's kind of playing every card he's drawn, so there's less range for him to be afraid of.
That's decent, but he needs something big to go along with this. Moog just doing absolutely nothing at this point.
If he plays Arnos Broodmother, that is guaranteed death. Actually, no matter how he chooses,
No matter
because
what.
he's dead.
Yeah, checkmate from Surrender. And this is obviously not the complete strategy for Surrender. He's just bringing some decent decks. But this is a very, very strong soft target that he has here on the Warlock that could be coming back to bite Glee.
Yep, maximum board presence here, but the Grand Slam should clean up most, if not all, of this. And, with that, puts Garrett into a situation where, yeah, he's doomed if he does and doomed if he doesn't. What's his last card?
Couldn't tell you at this point.
Yeah, it seems like he's played most of it. I believe.
Soulfire, maybe? Unless he's just playing one
Yeah,
of
it
those.
might be the second Soul. But either way, Garrett spots the lethal. And he's going to tap out game 3. Surrender gets 1 point on the board. And, you know, you mentioned soft targeting decks like Warlock. Warlock has had some trouble against Hunter. But despite that, believe it or not, throughout the Swiss portion so far, Warlock's had a very positive win rate.
Really? That is interesting.
Yes. It is
57%.
38 wins out of 67 games. So it's a 57% win rate against Hunter. In fact, it's its highest win rate matchup outside of Warrior.
Wow. I do find that surprising, and especially the Warrior as well. A lot of stats are very much flipped on their head here. Obviously, this is the sample size very different from what you're going to be getting on Ladder, where only the best of the best Warlock players are going to be feeling confident enough to bring it here. So you are inevitably going to get a kind of inflated win rate compared to what a lot of players would consider.
Yeah. On the flip side, Hunter's win rate has been struggling. It is, you know, outside of Paladin, the worst performing class right now by just a little bit. Druid
Yeah.
seems be right behind it. Then you have the win rate of Warrior seems to be slowly descending, which is kind of encouraging. I mean, people who try to be Warrior are not doing really as well.
And then the highest win rate class is, of course, Shaman, an incredible 73% over a very small sample size.
Right, which maybe goes to show you that Shaman wasn't really a problem.
Yeah.
When it played the games, it actually won a decent amount. It might have been the rest of the lineup that could have been shaken, because if you're bringing a Shaman, chances are you're trying a bunch of other things too. And then
Inevitably.
So Surrender goes for a Breath of Dream. Sees what kind of card it is. Because he wants to go for the Blowfly Swarm next. Or perhaps the Overgrowth.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking the Overgrowth here. The consideration was just whether or not you think a Coin or an Innovate is better than the average card in your deck at this point. And with the Mount Seller, I think he's just got a very clear game plan as it currently stands. You go the Mount Seller, Coin, Vate, Ironbark, Power of the Wild, and then you just say, you probably can't answer this, let's go on to the next game.
Yeah, this is how Druid needs the pressure, because they need to make boards that are hard to wipe from block unlimited mana.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Garrett trying his best to draw all the expensive cards in the deck.
Man, I mean, this is just the absolute dream here for Surrender. It really does not get any better than this.
Yeah, you hit ramp. I mean, when your opponent willingly just goes ahead and burns a card after playing Breath of Dreams with no ramp and then Overgrowth, you're kind of sweating Warlock.
Yeah.
And if I'm Garrett, first of all, it doesn't look like we're close at all to this. A lot of things we picked up were one-ups. And then, what's your game plan outside of that? Do you have to proactively play Zephrys? You're just going to go ahead and try and draw cards and fill up his hand. Now it's his turn to burn a card. Although, I don't know if that ends up being hurtful or harmful to his plan, 'cause I think he was looking for more Artifice.
Yeah, I mean, this has worked out pretty horrendously for him, because it also means he's not completing the quest on the following turn, of course, because you overdraw a card, which does not count for the quest counter. And with Surrender also getting some pretty premium beasts here after the +1/+1 buff comes down. I think the Glee... I mean, he doesn't even have the possibility of top deck into Keladan anymore, right? There's almost nothing that saves him.
Yeah. Yeah, he was really banking on Morg Artificer coming to his hand, and now, no matter how this is sliced here, he's in trouble. And Surrender has reload too. Sometimes you think, oh, I can just survive the waves of what Druid has, and I should start to climb back. But Overflow makes things even more complicated.
Time waits for no one.
And not only that, he's really handsome. The list just keeps on going on and on.
No, and he just recently get married. He's found true love. Oh, as if he didn't have the ability to play that card, but perhaps just the game tantalizing, showing him what he needed. I bet you wish you drew this card in.
Yeah, I mean, there is nothing. He's just dead next turn. He got druided. It's been a while since I've seen a stomp quite so this convincing.
Yeah, he just looked ill-prepared for the inevitable waves that Druid starts, and he couldn't even handle the first one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one thing where it's like you deal with the mouse there, then they reload with stuff, and then they play, the Blowfly Swarm. It's like, okay, that's when you die. But he couldn't even handle level 1. But granted, this is... the Druid ramped straight to level 10. This is like the end game kind of board that you see.
Yeah, exactly. This is like at the start of the game when the boss deliberately defeats you and there's nothing you can do just to show you how strong they are. This is so Glee can know how powerful Surrender can truly be.
It's like the first adventure boss level of the Knights of the Frozen Throne adventure where you're supposed to
Yes.
die to a Lich King.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, by the way. If you want to play Adventure 3 years ago, I just ruined the very first chapter for you. But there's no way you're coming back against that kind of druid with that start. So we're going to game number 5.
Yeah. And, no criticism of Glee there at all. The only chance, I think, in the deck that you have against that is top deck Keller down on 6. Like, there is just absolutely nothing else that the deck can do to beat that. It's just what happens when the Druid draws the Dream. And now, I think we are left with the most interesting of the 2 matchups left for the Warlock, with the Demon Hunter up against the Warlock, which is something that I keep hearing players go back and forth on in terms of their estimation on the matchup. In no small part because I still think the gameplay of Demon Hunter, after all these weeks of it being jammed by so many of the best players, is still changing and evolving.
Yeah, and it's fluctuating depending on how their deck lists also evolve. You know, like how do some of these techs for the mirror influence the way they approach the matchup? And the data does seem from the Swiss to favor a little bit more of Warlock, getting a slight edge, 52-48 versus the Demon Hunter. But I mean, that makes me feel like Demon Hunter is very competitive in this matchup. And Warlock, despite having such a high win rate, what do you think is the true key success to making Warlock dominate a Demon?
Well, it comes down to a couple of things, As I've been constantly saying against Demon Hunter with these control decks, you can't just sit there and remove every turn. That will not get the job done unless they hit the absolute deadest hand where they draw no cards whatsoever. In the average draw where they're hitting either a Spectral Sai or the Skull of Gul'dan, obviously in the ideal draw, they will eventually kill you if you're not developing. So you need to be going for clearing the board, but then getting the play of the Crazed Netherwing down, the Abyssal Summoner down, cheating out your 0-mana dragons later on in order to actually win the game in your own right. Is a very big part of it, for sure.
Yeah, the way I always see it is you just let Demon Hunter kill them. They will willingly use things like Warglaives of Azzinoth to trade their own health. And then I think Warlock ends up keeping pace in a very weird way. Like, both players are leveraging their health totals to try to get an advantage. And sometimes Demon Hunter ends up just taking a little too much damage because they need to keep trading to keep that momentum up if you're playing things like the Abyssal Summoner.
Ah, yes, the Osric approach of break yourself upon my body.
Exactly. Pain Olympics, so to speak. It's who can race to the one without dying. This kind of stinks here for Surrender.
It does, for sure. It does speak to, I think, one of the most important things to talk about in this matchup, which is the most recent philosophy of Demon Hunter versus Warlock has been moving a little bit further away from just early game development and tempo. It's good. You want the 1-drops in your starting hand, but you don't want to go all out on aggression and developing at the start of the game. So much so, to the point where I was wondering if Surrender would keep the Warglaives of Azzinoth in his starting hand with no other playable cards in hand. I'm not saying it's necessarily correct, but the numbers do support Warglaives of Azzinoth as one of the best cards in your starting hand against Warlock.
I would say so for sure. There was times where we saw players mulligan like 3 1-drops to try and get better mid-game cards against Warlock. So, Surrender most likely just understands what's important in this matchup and just go ahead and keep it cool, not overextend by just playing things like Demon Psychic for no reason.
Right.
Or at least not the previous turn. This turn, he can go ahead and set things up for his plays out of depth. Now that the Questing Explorer has been dealt with, Garrett doesn't really have anything to do this turn, and then next turn, well, I guess he could play Zephrys just for tempo. And I guess that makes sense, because a lot of times this matchup doesn't go deep enough for Zephrys to really get that value off his battle cry that you're hoping for.
Yeah, I think on this turn, I'm not completely convinced, because you're definitely expecting Warglaives of Azzinoth, and I think you can have a pretty good read that may be in hand, or at the very least there will be 5-drops, because your opponent just had a very awkward hand, and there's only so many expensive cards in the deck that it can be. At which point you now just have a smaller Abyssal Summoner.
True.
It's close.
Really
It's close.
big draw, though, just to get that Questing Explorer and some more presence on the
Yeah.
board. Except Surrender, how close is he to just starting to flip the switch and just go aggressive with the Metamorphosis? No more minions going to be played for this turn.
Oh, he just flipped a switch, and he is going for the throat right now. Just 1 or 2 draws, and he's closing out this game right now. But for Glee, Plot Twist, although probably not the play on this turn, presents a very interesting conundrum.
Yeah, and I mean, he does have the ability to race with the Abyssal Summoner.
Yeah, I like that.
And we kind of talked about how this is an important moment, and Surrender does not have a way to get past the 7/7 easily without using his Metamorphosis hero power.
And that is not the draw. It means that we're looking at, like, hero power down the Abyssal itself, which sounds awful.
Yeah, and I think this is Surrender understanding that when he's out of resources, he's got to make do with what he's got right now.
Yeah.
And this has to feel good if you're in Garrett's position. You know that your opponent didn't deal with it effectively, you can just go ahead and do the same.
Yeah, and even though, as you put it earlier, Surrender is going for gold in the Pain Olympics here, I think it's Glee who will be happiest about that. Because the more minions he puts down, the more time Surrender has to just face tank into them.
Yeah, and I don't think that's even a possible thing anymore. If he picks up the Warglaves of Azanoth, he is just going to take 14 and he's going to die. And he finds the Warglaves, and I think it's just too late.
So he can get up to 5-6 attack, right? So he can trade in the 1/1 and just about clear it off in one swing.
That's true.
Which means from his perspective at least, he is surviving.
So he goes down to 9. And Nether Breath, there's no dragon in hand, so... Oh, but he has the...
But there's the Rain of Fire.
Right. You never expect the Warlock to rain on your parade like that. That's going to do it. Game 5 goes to Garrett Lay, who's going to advance to day number 2 with a 4-1 record. Surrender joins the group of Grandmasters who seemingly cluster up at a 3-2 record. But a great job for this rising player from the Americas.
Yeah, I couldn't be happier for Garrett here. I think he represents a very underappreciated class of Hearthstone players here, who are the players who don't get a lot of time on stream, but with just a little bit of extra help could definitely get right the way up to Grandmasters. And with now getting that one step closer to potentially winning this weekend, but also if he just gets to a 7-2 record, qualifying through to Masters Tour Asia Pacific to happen later on in this year, he has that little bit of extra chance to make his dreams come true of a pro Hearthstone career.
Yep, that's right. So with that, we have one final match for today. And that is featuring our reigning global finals champion, VK Lion, up against Azu. Lion comes in with even more expectations now that she made a top 8 at a Masters Tour. Can she do it again and keep up her amazing streak of consistency? Because remember, heading to BlizzCon last year, she had gotten to 3rd place and a 2nd place. So it only feels right that she wrapped it with a global 1st place. And now at the top 8 this year already, in her first Masters Tour appearance, can she once again repeat that? And I mean, at that point, like, she's already silenced so many critics, both in the past and in the recent, or I guess in the present as well. But I mean, she's doing so well already, and I can't wait to see her play again on stream here. We had her on stream earlier.
And I will say, she can silence any... I don't know who these critics are, but whoever they are, she can silence them already with her play today. I think she was just playing some lights-out Hearthstone earlier, flipping one of the least favorable matchups we have in Hearthstone at the moment of Demon Hunter versus Warrior. Just an absolute masterclass on how to turn that matchup around. And taking a very deserved win, and up at 4-0 now. She is proving herself to be not only, obviously, as you said, a current world champion that we have here, but also just a very strong tournament grinder here with good results in this tournament and the previous one as well.
Right. And it's going to be going up against Azu, who has basically climbed a bunch of ladder extensively, has played in a bunch of Open Cups. You look at some of the grinders out there. People focus a lot on America and Europe, but plenty of people also grinding in that region. Azu is one of them. And we'll see if he's able to carry over some of his latter results in Open Cup qualifiers against Lion. This is the Druid Mirror. Taking a look at their deck lists side by side, it does seem like there is a lot of similarities. It does seem like there is a slight difference in the count of like Soul of the Forest, for example. Azu runs 2 of them, while Lion chooses to run 1 and include a little bit more removal.
And already, I think, as basic as it may seem, we can see that VK Lion has excellent understanding of the Druid matchup here, just going all out with the development at the start of the game. It's, I mean, it's not especially deep, to be honest, but it is just the correct play, and it's going to win her the game.
Yeah, this might be too little too late. I mean, Azu does have...
That's true.
A good hand right now for a turn 7. Got 4 playable cards.
Well, this is going to have to be the mother of all Mount Sellers.
Yes, it has to be rushing minion. Nope, not that.
Not that.
Yes, you've got a Moonfire. Hopefully you can find something worth Ironbark besides Mount. World champ privilege.
I'm starting to see why Daenerys went for Mother of Dragons instead of Mother of Hares, because this doesn't have quite the same ring to it.
Yeah. Then I don't think she would ever conquer anything.
Or Panthers.
Is this just lethal? Close. With that Wrath in hand. And like she just drew Moonfire as
no,
well?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think it's just a tad off, because she can go 9-12 with the Wrath, and then Moonfire Hero Power, which means she can connect 9 to face on this turn. But, I mean, obviously you want to take the win here because it's not looking amazing if she doesn't hit it. But given that she's hit the incredibly strong play with the Glowfly at the start, as long as she clears off the Mount Cellar, which she can very easily do here, probably hit the Overgrowth as well to ramp up to Overflow, she should be just fine.
Yeah, that's true. She does have the access to the overflows versus Azu holding Fungal Fortune. It does seem like she's probably going to weigh those two options. Going into her turn 6, she has Overgrowth as well. In this position, there's not really too much to do. You got to just keep following the aggressive line you set forth and let Azu pick up the pieces. I do like these trades. Stop Azu from double Soul of the Forest deck. Maybe he'll potentially collect value.
Sure. So the other way to go about this was obviously to sacrifice that little bit more board control and get the Overgrowth down on this turn, which sets up for a much stronger play on turn 8 with the Overflow. But I guess looking at the texture of her hand, she's very possibly looking to actually Overgrowth directly into Ysera and then follow up with the Overflow to get the dragons.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what she was thinking about, because her turn did take a little bit of time, and we knew that her play was basically 2 different times. And I do like the Ysera into Overflow. It makes the threat a lot harder to pace against, and when you do get to play Ysera, it almost shuts off any possibility for your opponent to come back unless they're able to get set up before you play Ysera.
I wonder.
So then from this position for Azu,
Time waits for no one.
I mean, you can use things like Crystal Power and whatnot to fight back on the board, but gotta clear off all these minions here. Because if 2 minions survive, heck, even if 1 minion survives, it's scary, you could die.
Yeah, there are outs for lethal at that point with another Moonfire plus Savage Roar. You don't want to be messing around with any of that nonsense. But the good news for Azu, for sure, is that he's going to be met with a much, much tamer turn now from VK Lion.
Yeah, and the benefit is that he gets to play his Ysera first.
Exactly. He's currently lacking Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I wonder if Azu, purposely wanted to keep. Oh gosh. Oh wow.
Oh,
You can see the night and day difference of a player that's able to ramp versus a player that chose
Yeah.
aggression. It did not pan out for Lion to win the game immediately. Another hole.
Yeah, this is a very direct result of her choice to go for that play I was talking about, foregoing the overgrowth in order to keep more minions on board. Still not saying it's wrong. This was kind of one of the worst panouts that could have happened for her with the first Ysera coming down. But it is just worth talking about that there was another line she could have gone for with the overflow first, Ysera afterwards. Very, very close, and not necessarily would have gone much better for her. You live in the legacy of your plays.
Azu finds Burzon off the first portal, finds a Rusher as well. Oh my goodness. And with Power of the Wild also kind of waiting there, Azu has very strong board coming in.
Well, Power of the Wild alone is a board clear right now on the opposing Ysera, as is Savage Roar, of course.
I think, Azu's just kind of weighing what's the best use of his mana here. Savage Roar does something similar to Power of the Wild, I guess, and he has two of them. Because Power of the Wild doesn't even allow him to trade efficient.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. It got a little bit wonky with Power of the Wild, sure.
So here we go. I guess the benefit is if you anticipate your opponent playing Overflow, it would have been better to keep your Thera. But now we're going to have to hope that for Lion's side, she's going to need to get a bunch of Dragon Portals, find spell damage with the Azure Explorer.
Not terrible. You'd take a Squall Hunter over that, but it's not the worst. More dragons now, potentially, as well. And that rope burning potentially signals Nozdormu to me.
Uh-oh. Yeah, that could very well be a possibility here. And it makes an appearance. Both Nozdormus, both forms. And Lion might be running out of time. Both players potentially playing a little bit on lag here, trying to get everything out. She looks like she finished this just in the nick of time. Savage Roar.
8 plus 6, 14.
That looks like it's enough.
10, 28. Yeah, that's lethal. That's lethal.
Wow. Well, talk about pushing the pace of play. And that's going to wrap up game one. Azu wins the tumultuous Druid Mirror and starts off with a 1-0 lead.
Yeah, and I think very well done from his part. He was met with the disaster board on the other side with Coin Innovate for the Glowfly for a bunch of minions on board. He gave it the best possible chance of fighting back, and even with the disastrous outcome of 2 hares, the worst possible beast, one after the other, still was able to salvage that game. It's not often you see that in the Druid Mirrors.
Yeah, and I think that it just kind of goes to show you that in these kinds of mirrors, you really shouldn't give up until the end because there's some miracles that Druid can pull out even if it's not ahead early game. Obviously, the ramp hands can sometimes just like fall into wins, but sometimes you have to go to Plan B, and I think he did a good job, playing to his outs, and also just goes to show you that. Even if Druid gets you in a position where you feel like it's unwinnable, you should really hang in there.
You absolutely should, as was demonstrated there. And so now, for Azu, taking a look at the rest of his decks, the Mage is obviously the standout one left over for him. Could have a decent matchup against what's left. The Druid, I think, is very winnable for the Mage, obviously with Reno able to take out a huge swathe of minions. But before that, we're getting a Highlander Hunter Mirror, not something we've seen for a long while.
Yeah, Highlander Hunter Mirrors feel even more punishing than the Druid Mirrors of who's ahead versus who's behind. So we shall see who is going to be favored. I already like the player that gets to go first over the player that gets to go second. But there's some pretty good options here for Azu in terms of going second. He's got Velma, he's got the Fairy Dragon. Both are hard cards to deal with right now.
Yeah, these are both premium. I kind of actually like the Fairy Dragon here instead of the Imprisoned Felmore because Felmore is obviously best the quicker you play it. It gets a lot worse for every turn you delay it. But here, the Fairy Dragon is obviously invulnerable to the hero power due to its kind of untargetable effect. Whereas on turn 3, you're looking at the potential play of weapons, be it the Desert Spear or the Stormhammer. Whereas now, the only other answer that would be available is Corrosive Breath, which also can't target it.
Victory is in my grasp.
Yeah, is there any draw from the tracking that can influence this? It doesn't look like it.
Yeah, Battle Mage is the only other 1-mana card.
So in that case, does she have to cede the board state and just simply hero power? She ends up going for the track. Probably just going to try to plan some kind of comeback mechanism. And with Zixar in hand, that makes Diving Griffin much better.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, yes, because you can draw Zixor Prime. In another way, no, because she has both of her Rush minions in hand, so it's unplayable until the Zixor actually dies. But as you were kind of alluding to, that will happen very soon, I imagine.
And Azu eventually will play stuff that can get traded into. In fact, it's Zixar for Zixar. That can come down much later here. For now, Lion can kind of follow her curve and just play the Bone Wraith, Faceless Corruptor if the Bone Wraith Remnant survives.
Mm-hmm.
And the Faceless Corruptor turn is fairly impactful. Oh my.
Wow.
That's so big for Azu. Oh my goodness.
It is so big. The ramifications of this are so wide-reaching. The fact that there's no minion on board for Faceless Corruptor to come down on this turn means that the Dragonbane cannot be killed, which means Azu can just start spamming his hero power and take out anything that VK Lion develops.
Yeah, and I think Lion has to be okay with taking this damage from the Dragonbane. If that ends up being the case, Azu can also just freely develop with the big old whelp. And this is actually fairly close. I think the big old whelp
It's really close.
is better simply because it can make your turn 6 even better. And right now,
Great point.
your turn 6 would be a big old whelp, which would be
Yeah.
a little bit inefficient relative to what your opponent could be doing.
Especially as I think you're not really expecting them to develop wide going into turn 6, so Unleash the Hounds probably doesn't become active quite yet. It's really close, because, to be fair, even just looking at the cards off the top of the deck, there's few cards that don't work well with a hero power on the following turn to just throw out.
Right.
Very complicated turn there, actually. Deceptively so.
Okay, well, Lion does have the Feywing to play this turn. On turn 7, she can guarantee a Faceless Corrupted target with Fairy Dragon, and then turn 8 is Zixar Prime. So it looks like she's pretty much got her game plan set. Or she's going to go ahead and Fairy Dragon because she can use Faceless Corruptor on the Felmoth, assuming it doesn't die in the process.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's crashing into a big old whelp to clear it off, you're probably fairly happy with that exchange anyway.
Right. Oh my goodness, a Scale Rider.
It's so clean. It's just so clean. Obviously, the 50-50 here that he hit last time would be pretty nice to hit again.
Well, I mean,
arguably that was the hit.
Right. I was saying, like, putting 8 damage more into your opponent right now is equally scary for Lion.
Yeah.
Especially going into the turn of potentially have to down to Brand.
Okay.
So with that, it's not even a full board clear.
It's close, isn't it? But not quite there.
That nerf to Faceless Corruptor ages ago. Coming up big. Faceless Corruptor used to be a fight.
Victory is in my grasp.
Yeah, you're just taking 2-4-1s here and crying about it, I think.
Right. And it's not like, I mean, Azu doesn't have the meaty 7 drop.
That's potentially the meaty 8-drop, though, with Diving Griffin able to draw his own Zixor Prime out of the deck.
Corrosive Breath. I mean, so now Azu can go to the straight up, I'm just going to kill you before you can get set up turn.
Yeah. Is
Corrosive.
it enough, though? Does it work with his game plan well enough? I'm wondering if you even deviate to Varanus to go with Unleash on turn 9, but then you have Alexstrasza to go that turn anyway.
Just feels so powerful to put your opponent down to 5.
Fair.
Or I guess maybe not now, but soon. And it's kind of like what you said, the Diving Griffin can pull out the Zixor to answer your opponent's Zixor. You saw Faces Corrupt on the far left of your opponent's hand, and then you saw Diving Griffin pull a Rush Me from the deck, so you know Zixor.
Yeah.
I mean, that does not find it.
In a way, that was my thinking, where you can go for Varanus Unleash to clear off the board when you know a big scary Zixor is in hand. But the smarter response to a big Zixor is my opponent can't use it if they're dead.
Right. Well, if they play Zixor, he's actually summoning more minions for Unleash and Corrosive Breath.
That's
at the
true.
Game. So this was actually a complete setup by Azu, understanding that the Lion is going to play Zixor, and then he gets an opportunity to play Unleash. And the Corrosive Breath, that's a 2-0 lead for Azu.
Yeah. Very smart play from Azu here, I think, consistently. VK Lion give herself the best shot of fighting back, but I mean, as soon as that Dragonbane hit the board, man, it's just too much to fight back against.
And with that, 2-0 lead over Lion, our reigning global champion. And, you know, overall, he's playing very solidly, and perhaps another player to pay attention to as we continue to develop, because both these players are 4-0. And, you know, some likely candidates to advance to day number 2, potentially making top 8.
Very, very likely. It's obviously slightly different stakes here for Lion, with no possibility to graduate through to Grandmasters, but still looking to not only get her share of this $500,000 prize pool here at Masters Tour Jönköping, but also just to cement her name, I think, is arguably even more important to her as one of the strongest competitive Hearthstone players that we have at the moment, as just being one of the all-time greats and having one of the best runs in Hearthstone history, which would very much be in there, would always be brought up in that discussion were she to win here this weekend.
Yeah, that's right. So the last deck is Mage. And Mage just wants one matchup, and that is against the Warrior. Although I guess against Druid, it's been really doing well too. So if you anticipate Druid being a popular deck in the field, you can try to target that. It's just that Mage feels like it gives up almost every other matchup. It feels like, just to try to beat these two classes at the moment. So, you know, we'll see how this Mage does, because obviously Azu's had to either win or get it banned every single series up until this point. So clearly it's working out.
The moment is upon
And for Lion, it's not the most aggressive start, I will say, but far from a big slouch as well. And after, I imagine, the Rottennest Drake is picked up, her curve's looking a lot smoother now. Just powerful dragons coming down on most of these turns.
Oh yeah. Especially using Scavenger's Ingenuity to get a buff on your 3-cost beasts.
Sign me up.
Is Azu actually thinking about playing a 2 there? He thought about it for quite some time.
Always something to consider. But you got to consider, if my opponent plays a minion on turn 2, can they kill it on turn 3? Sorry, can they kill the Doomsayer on turn 3 if I throw it down afterwards? And generally in Hunter, I think the answer is no. You know, if an Ooze came down, I think it would be fairly difficult for a Lion to be able to kill off the Doomsayer.
Right.
Ooh.
Okay. Zephyrus on 3. You feel like Mage needs to be proactive with Zephyrus, or are they just stuck being reactive because Hunter's such a high-pressure, high-octane deck?
I mean, what I will say is if it had come down on turn 2, I'm pretty sure Azu would have just slammed it down and picked up a Wild Growth to start curving up to his power cards a little bit sooner. On turn 3, it starts getting a little bit more confusing, of course, and I think he's quite clearly saving it for a more reactive instance here, or at least a more opportune moment. You know, if he can get himself a huge Edwin or whatever later on, he will take it.
Oh, wow. Great setup here from Azu.
Yeah.
Gets the Acidic Swamp Ooze to shut down that weapon. Not like Lion had the Faces Corruptor anyways, but this is just nice for him to answer the early game threats. And so far keeping a pretty even pace. I do like the Doomsayer on 3 because you know your opponent has a beast that got buffed by a scavenger, and you stop
that's
it
true.
from developing because the Griffin can't actually kill it anymore with that scavenger doing nerf.
And also, if they're not playing a minion, what else are they likely to do on turn 3? There's 2 weapons in the deck, which gives you perfect opportunity to destroy them. For Azu, I think it's probably a little bit sad that he didn't get the Storm Hammer, because you really, really want to be taking that out the way wherever possible.
But yeah, Azu with that Dragoncaster in hand and Malagos Aspect of Magic,
Oh, yes.
he is going to go for some explosive play next turn, whether Power of Creation or Deep Freeze. And for Lion, it looks like she has an opportunity to set up the better weapon, so to speak. Both Desert Spear and Stormhammer have their uses, but universally it seems like Stormhammer is much stronger.
Is that better than just playing Rot Nest here? Like, I know that Mage plays singularly big minions, and she would be afraid of Reno on turn 6, and she would like to respond with the Rot Nest Drake, but I mean, it's a 6/5 you can throw down and just start hitting your opponent. Her hand's pretty expensive. She's got to start playing these threats. Yeah, the Reno may just be a little bit too devastating on the other side, so I can understand why she'd want to hold off.
Right. I don't think she wants to lose in the Temple Wars, unfortunately. It looks like she is going to get pretty challenged by this Dragoncaster play. I think Deep Freeze looks really good, but if he chooses to go for Power of Creation, you can also...
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing for me was just that there's a weapon in play. You can just lock that out for the rest of the game.
Right. I mean, these 4/7s are better than the 6s, except the Varanus does challenge this. And, you know, Lion gets to deal with the pretty dramatic Lord Swing.
And this is a pretty big downside of going for this play over the Deep Freeze, because the 2/2 could have been frozen, which means you have more minions sticking in play. You can keep the freeze rolling on the weapon as well. It's close.
Learn Draconic. Okay.
That's pretty cool.
It is cool. I was sort of anticipating a mirror image in this position, because then it would absorb things like the weapon swings for a while with the Boom Pistol Bully, and then your opponent can't really do much. Although, incidentally, it would have lined up really poorly into Unleash the Hounds and the Leok. So,
true.
ended up being the right call there. Wow, Lion with just so many weak turns. It seems like Azu...
Yeah. I mean, she's having weak turn after weak turn, but at the same time, it's about to start swinging around for her, because Dragon Queen Alexstrasza, as long as she doesn't die on the following turn, which at the moment she very well may, could be the power swing back into the game.
This looks like she might die. Okay.
Whoa.
What can you do with Zephyrus in up to 9 mana here?
Well, Brawl is obviously the first thing that speaks to me, but it could be Coin Zephyrus. Oh, sorry, Coin Unleash Zephyrus. Does it ever offer a quality? Just to guarantee the clear on every minion on your opponent's side?
Oh, that's clever.
I don't know if it's even better necessarily, to be honest. I mean, it guarantees you a clear, obviously, but you have to use the Coin and Unleash. And I don't even know if it would offer it, to be perfectly honest. I haven't tested that enough myself.
Usually the Zephyrus clears for Hunter are, of course, the normal AoE cards, or using cards like Brandis and Whirlwind.
Yeah, that's true.
Zephyrus.
Haha.
This is sort of testing Lion's situation knowledge with Zephyrus, and also one thing I'm kind of scared about is if she doesn't have enough time, she's gonna go for the Coin Dragon Queen Alexstrasza.
She needs Taunt or Heal just to survive on this turn.
That's it. She is dead. Alexstrasza offensively, which, you know, it's a one-of, but Mage has got the goods, and that's going to be a 3-0 for Azu, who's going to end his day 5-0 and hand Lion her first loss of day 1 here at Masters Tour Young.
Yes, indeed. A bit of an unfortunate end there, but I think overall it is such a strong performance after her top 8 that we saw last season, only falling to Casey at the very end in a kind of very fitting revenge there for him. And now very potentially looking at a second top 8 in a row here. It is obviously not the most crazy double back-to-back story we've had over the past couple of Masters tours with Blyze's victory twice in a row. But I think it would, again, just go that little bit further, cementing her as not only one of the strongest players, but one of the all-time greats that we have here in Hearthstone.
That's right. So with that, we have our standings and Swiss update to tell everybody at home how everything is going so far. So here are the undefeated players so far. We have Irving, Vitora, we have Stone, Bronx, Rekfam, Pignas, Rami, Give Please, Warma, and Enigma. And that includes the first time that sentence has ever been said.
Yeah, exactly. Enough monkeys on enough typewriters. I still think they'd never get that combination.
Maybe. Rekvim Pignas? Pretty close. Sounds
the
a
words
lot,
of the
lot
bard.
like my texts at the Masters Tour Young Shipping after party.
Yeah, the one thing I do want to give a shout out here is I'm not all too familiar with most of these players, aside from Fujitora, who we all know very well, but I want to give a shout out to Rekvam, see him in Twitch chats all the time. He is a true degenerate in terms of the streams, just like me, and I think he's doing a great job.
How can you not at least highlight the players right behind them, PNC, who has been unceremoniously relegated as a Grandmaster. Never fun to see some of these GMs, of course, lose their spot, but he came back with a vengeance. By all means, he was kind of joking about installing other games and taking a little bit of a break, but it seems like he is back with a vengeance, at least for now, and we'll see how he performs, because out of all the regions, Americas does seem one of the more open ones based off qualification, and that may or may not have something to do with the fact that French players seem to be dominating every single Masters Tour up at this point.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so Europe, of course, still standing on top of the prize earning, and we'll see how that carries over to day number 2. In the meantime, we did talk about how some of the top earners so far have been performing. Let's go ahead and check in on the players that we're paying attention to, because if the event were to end yesterday, or rather, if we were to make the cutoff yesterday, these are the top players who would be invited to Grandmaster, although we do have an unusual tie for 3rd place right now between Impact and Unlimited.
Yeah, also a tie in 1st place between No Hands Gamer, who was the favorite going into this weekend as the number 1 prize earner, and then of course Brimful down at 1-3 now. I think he's they put him that because he's capped out his earnings. They've already cashed him in, and so No Hands Gamer at 3-2 I think is probably guaranteed at this point to end up higher than Brimful.
Yep, and a 3-2 is still a very good score when you look at how everyone else is doing. Tough break for Impact, been all day. Jumps into 3rd place, and Tinsho losing to that duel with Baffling Book, which is just such a good use for him. And taking a look at Europe as well here, we have Elisha, who is pretty much unanimously going to make it no matter what. 2 back-to-back wins of Masters Tours, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely no way that he can not make it here. But the other big story here, I think, is A-Rock, who is very close himself at this point to guaranteeing himself that spot in Grand Masters. A 3-2 record. Okay, he's dipped down a little bit over the past couple of games, but after a 3-0 start, he was looking very, very likely.
Yep. And for Deaddraw, how disappointing would it be if he once again finishes in 4th place, or rather just 1 spot out? As I know, Derek, that would mean so much to you in the wrong way. You're cheering for Deaddraw to get in this time, aren't you?
I mean, I'm cheering him, obviously, because he is a fellow British Hearthstone player. But I will also say, I think that I've rarely seen a rallying cry stronger amongst the pro community saying, this person has to be in Grandmasters. Like when I did my kind of pseudo-fantasy pick for this weekend, everyone was saying, oh, Deaddraw, easiest pick in the world. You always go for him just because he's so consistent in these Masters Tour events, and also so consistent on ladder. He is just always in the single digits, without doubt.
Oh yeah, I think it's overdue for Deaddraw to break through, and with that 4-1 record, he's doing well. And also a little disappointing to see Casper at 2-3. Hunter Ace who also got relegated. But hey, I mean, Europe is so competitive. It was a tough shot in the first place. Over to Asia Pacific, Allen, Numbers, and Bang Hyugi and Tish all were in commanding leads over the rest of the field. And with Allen's stellar first few rounds of performances, at least has continued to put him higher in the standing. And then you also have another relegated player from Grandmaster in Staz. It seems like all of these regions has one Grandmaster player that was on the cusp, but once more seems to be falling short there. But of course, Give Please was one of the players undefeated, and he has the most to gain on Tish and Bang Hyugi.
Yeah, currently looking very good for Give Please. Like you said, Staz unfortunately will not be making his return to Grandmasters quite yet, but of course could try and get in for the next season after we have to relegate a few more players. But I mean, Allen, what a beast of a man. Just looking at him in both of his Hearthstone play and just his physique, that expression he has there inspires so much confidence in me. I feel like I could win a tournament myself.
So, with that, looking like some of the players who were already on that cusp, getting over that finish line. We'll have more updates for you tomorrow, of course, when the Swiss completely finishes, and then you have pretty much the lock standings from that point on. A couple more movements can still be made, but ultimately, we're not here just to necessarily say who's getting the Grandmaster. We're finding out who is truly starting to begin their career as a Hearthstone professional player, because they get to earn a lot of money. They start to put their names on the map, and most importantly, they can start challenging the throne to potentially become the path to be a world champion. So with that, Derek, the first day is done. I know we kind of already said a lot of our thoughts on the day and the matter, giving a look at the standings, but is there any final thoughts that you'd like to say before we wrap this up?
I just want to say that obviously with this being the culmination of so much effort for all of these players, they've worked so hard, both in terms of qualifying through the Open Cup grinding ladder, grinding practice sets with all their teammates and practice partners as well. I just want to say that no matter how everyone did, everyone here can hold their head high just for having qualified through, even if you dropped out today. Just well done, everyone, just for getting here is an achievement in its own right.
Absolutely. I am a firm believer that Match Tour Online is the hardest competition that Hearthstone's ever seen. It's completely accessible. We have no travel to really block people from being able to come in like at the beginning of this year when the COVID scare was first starting to unfold. So, being able to at least go even this field already tells you a lot about the skill level of these players. And if you guys missed any portion of this broadcast, you can go ahead and check our VODs here at youtube.com/Hearthstone Esports. And if you want to check out deck list standings formats or even just get more information about the program in general, head over to playhearthstone.com/esports for all information regarding Masters Tour and this entire program. That's it from us from D1, from Fodan, Derek Brown, and every other caster here part of Masters Tour Young Shipping Online. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow for more Hearthstone.